The 5 words landed not with a shout, but with the quiet, surgical precision of a scalpel. Effective immediately. HR, downstairs. 5 words. That was all. Elara Vance stood in the doorway of my office, a slash of crimson power suit and cold ambition, before she dropped the single sheet of paper onto my desk and turned on her heel. The dismissal was so absolute, so devoid of humanity, that for a moment I couldn't process it. There was no handshake, no feigned regret, no explanation. Just the crisp, expensive linen paper the kind corporations use to lend an air of gravitas to their most brutal decisions. My name was at the top, Dr. Eris Thorne. The date and time were stamped beneath, Monday, 11:58 a.m. I was 52 years old, and I had just been fired from Aetherius Innovations, the company I had helped build from a 2-room incubator into a global leader in quantum encryption. I had given them 25 years of my life. I checked my watch, a simple titanium timepiece my daughter had saved up to buy me for my 50th birthday. It was precisely noon. My performance bonus, $187,000, was scheduled to hit my account on Thursday at noon, 72 hours from now. Elara thought she was being clever, ruthless even. Cut me loose 2 minutes before the official start of the new pay period, saving the company a chunk of change before the quarter-end report. She saw me as a costly relic, a high-salary line item to be excised. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have comprehended, was that my bonus wasn't just money. It was a tripwire, and she had just stumbled over it, activating a dead man's switch connected to the very heart of the $450 million merger she was so desperate to seal. Here is what you need to understand. That $187,000 was tied to a clause written 14 years ago by the company's founder, Dr. Alistair Finch. Alistair wasn't just a brilliant physicist, he was a man of principle, forged in the old world of academic integrity and handshake deals. He believed that loyalty was a two-way street, and that the fruits of one's labor should be protected from the vagaries of corporate greed. When he wrote that clause into my contract, he did so with the grim determination of a man building a vault. The clause was simple, elegant, and utterly lethal. Once that bonus was paid, full, uncontested ownership of our core quantum lattice algorithm, the Aegis key, would automatically transfer to me. Not symbolically, not in spirit, legally. The transfer agreement, signed and executed 14 years ago, was held in a digital escrow, waiting for a single automated signal from Aetherius' payroll system. Without the Aegis key, Aetherius was a hollow shell. The algorithm was the foundational technology upon which our entire product suite was built. And more importantly, it was the crown jewel being sold to our would-be acquirer, Cronus Corporation. Elara Vance had just armed a bomb she didn't know existed. I signed the termination notice without a word. My hand was steady. I stood, took my worn leather satchel from the back of my chair, and walked out of the office I had occupied for over a decade. I didn't look back. HR was waiting in the lobby, a young, nervous man and a stern-faced woman, as if they were escorting a convicted felon from the premises. I gave them a curt nod and kept walking. On my desk, I had left a small, silver external hard drive. I saw Elara glance at it through the glass wall of her office as I passed. A tiny triumphant smirk touched her lips. She probably thought it was my personal backup, my life's work. She believed she had secured everything. That drive was empty for years, a decoy. Every real backup, every line of the Aegis key's code, every development log was secured behind a multi-layered biometric encryption protocol that only I could access. It existed nowhere on Aetherius' servers. Alistair and I had made sure of that. I got into my car, an aging but reliable sedan, and drove home through the midday traffic. The city pulsed with its normal, indifferent rhythm. People were heading to lunch, chatting on phones, living their lives. No one knew that in 72 hours, one of the biggest tech mergers of the year would implode, and it would all trace back to 5 words uttered in a corner office on the 32nd floor. When I walked through my front door, the smell of fresh coffee and lemon polish greeted me. Lena was in the kitchen. She took one look at my face, and the ceramic mug she was holding froze halfway to her lips. "Eris?" "I got fired," I said, my voice flat. She set the mug down carefully. "What happened?" Alara Vance walked into my office at noon and handed me a termination notice, effective immediately. Lena has been my wife for 28 years. She stood by me through my postdoc years, through the chaotic, ramen-fueled startup phase of Ethereus, through all-nighters when systems crashed and clients threatened to walk. She'd held our family together through crises that would have shattered other marriages. But this was different. This wasn't an external threat. It was a betrayal. From within. Our Sophie is in her final year of grad school. Leo is applying for college. The mortgage, Eris... Why would she do that? Because she's trying to cut me out before my bonus pays. She thinks she's saving $187,000. I met her gaze. And the clause, Lena. She just triggered it. In 72 hours, I'll own the Aegis key. Not Ethereus. Me. She pulled out a chair at our oak kitchen table and sat down across from me. What about the Kronos merger? Dead without it, I said simply. She was quiet for a long moment, her eyes searching mine. Then she said something that hit me with more force than the termination ever could. Eris, you've given them 25 years. What about us? What about Sophie and Leo? What about your health? 6 months ago, my doctor sat me down. My blood pressure was creeping into dangerous territory. My cholesterol was high. Pre-hypertensive, he called it. You need to manage the stress, Eris. Lose 15 pounds. Start thinking about an exit strategy, not a 5-year plan. I had promised Lena that once the Kronos deal was sealed, we would take a sabbatical. A month in the Scottish Highlands. A remote cottage. No phones, no emails. Just us. I know what I promised, I said, the weight of it pressing down on me. Do you? She asked, her tone not accusatory but weary. Because you've been talking about slowing down for 3 years, and you're still there every weekend, most evenings. This feels different, but the result is the same. You're still carrying their weight. This is different, I insisted, a spark of the old fire igniting in my gut. Because Alistair trusted me to protect what we built. Alara just tried to torch it because she couldn't be bothered to read a contract she's supposed to be managing. Lena studied my face. She wasn't angry, just profoundly tired. Then finish it, she said finally. But when this is over, we're going to Scotland. No arguments. Deal, I said. The word feeling like a vow. I went upstairs to my home office, a sanctuary of bookshelves and warm wood, so different from the sterile glass and steel of Ethereus. I powered up my custom-built workstation. A single window opened on the central monitor. A countdown clock appeared, its digits a stark, bloody red. 71, 58, 42. Let me tell you about Alistair Finch. I met him 25 years ago. I was 27, buzzing with ideas from my postdoctoral work at MIT. Ethereus was nothing then, just a cluttered warehouse space full of humming servers and engineers surviving on caffeine and idealism. Alistair was in his 50s with a wild mane of white hair and eyes that saw 5 possibilities for every problem. He saw something in me that first day. Not just the raw technical skill, but a shared belief that if you were going to build something, you built it to last, and you protected the people who helped you do it. Over the years, I became his chief problem solver. In 2015, when a state-sponsored actor nearly breached the firewalls of a major European bank that used our early encryption, I was the one who spent 96 hours straight in the digital trenches rewriting our protocols from the ground up. We stopped the attack with minutes to spare before a catastrophic data dump.
When the Department of Defense needed an unhackable communication layer for its drone fleet, I architected the Aegis Key prototype. When our biggest competitor released a product that threatened to eclipse us, I led the team that developed the counter algorithm in 6 weeks, a feat the industry called the Ada Theorist miracle. I didn't do it for the accolades of the bonuses. I did it because I was part of something that mattered, something we had built with our own hands and minds.
14 years ago, Alistair asked me to meet him at his favorite pub in Cambridge. It was a rainy Tuesday, and we were both drained from a patent battle. Over glasses of single malt scotch, he grew uncharacteristically solemn. "Eris," he said, his voice low, "I've been in this game long enough to see the pattern. The founders build the temple, the priests take over, and then the merchants come to sell the pews. They gut the soul of the place, fire the architects, and wonder why the roof caves in." He slid a single sheet of paper across the table. It was a contract addendum. He explained the clause. My annual bonus wasn't just compensation, it was a legal trigger. Once paid, the intellectual property rights for the Aegis Key would transfer to me, personally and automatically. The paperwork was already signed and sitting with an independent legal firm, waiting only for the financial confirmation from Aetherius. "You'll own it, Eris," he said, his gaze intense. "No board, no bean counter, no ambitious junior executive can ever steal it, license it to our enemies, or run it into the ground through sheer incompetence." I remember the ice in my glass clinking as my hand shook. "Alistair, this is your legacy. This is everything." "No," he corrected gently, "it's our legacy, and I trust you to protect it more than I trust any committee of suits. You understand its heart. They only see its price tag." At the time, I thought he was being melodramatic, but Alistair had survived the cutthroat tech wars of the 90s. He knew how to see threats long before they crested the horizon. Now, sitting at my desk, watching the red numbers tick down, I understood. Alistair hadn't been paranoid. He'd been prescient. He had built a failsafe, and Ilara Vance, in her glorious, ignorant ambition, had just activated it. I ran a diagnostic on my security protocols. My credentials were still valid, my encryption keys untouched. There had been no unauthorized access attempts on my private servers. Ilara and her IT lackeys hadn't even tried to breach the real system. They were too busy celebrating their capture of the decoy hard drive. Then, I set up one final piece of the machine, an automated email, scheduled to send if the licensing rights weren't formally renewed in my name before the timer hit 0. The recipients were the 3 lead lawyers at Kronos Corporation. The message was brutally direct. As of Thursday, 12 p.m. noon, Aetherius Innovations no longer holds valid licensing rights to the Aegis Key algorithm, designated as Core Technology Q-Lattice 7 in the merger agreement. Please review Section 7, Clause 3, Key Personnel and IP Continuity. Section 7, Clause 3, the Key Man Clause. It listed 2 people as essential to the valuation and integration of the merger. I was the first name. If either of us was terminated before the deal's completion, Kronos had the right to unilaterally delay, renegotiate, or abandon the acquisition. Ilara had never read it. I would have staked my entire Aetherius pension on that. The email would send automatically. No button to push, no last-second change of heart, just a quiet digital notification that would detonate her world. I went back downstairs. Lena had made pasta for dinner. We ate in a comfortable silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts about the future. Afterward, I sat on the back porch with a glass of scotch, the same brand Alistair and I had drunk that night. I watched the fireflies blink in the gathering dusk. My phone rang twice, unknown numbers. I let them go to voicemail. There would be time for conversations later. Right now, the clock was ticking, and Ilara Vance was dancing on the edge of a volcano, utterly unaware of the heat. The next morning, I woke before dawn. Lena was still asleep. I went downstairs, made a pot of strong coffee, and checked my phone. 3 missed calls, all from numbers I didn't recognize. 2 voicemails. I deleted them without listening. The countdown on my computer read 59 hours,
12 minutes and 07 seconds. I was halfway through my first cup when my phone rang again. This time it was a reporter from TechWire Daily. An email came through first, polite but probing. She'd heard rumors of significant personnel changes at Ethereus related to the Kronos merger. Did I have any comment? I wrote back a single line. Ask them about Section 7, Clause 3. That was all it took. Section 7 was buried deep in the merger agreement's appendix, the key man clause. My name first on the list. Ilara had signed off on it 6 months ago, likely without a second glance. Now a financial reporter was about to start asking questions that would make the lawyers at Kronos break out in a cold sweat. I went for a long walk. The morning air was cool and clean. I needed to clear the static from my mind. A familiar dull pressure was building in my chest, the kind I'd been ignoring for months. The doctor's voice echoed, "You need to reduce stress, Eris." I pushed it aside and kept walking, my pace brisk. By the time I returned, my inbox had a new message. It was from Isabel Rossi, lead counsel for Kronos Corporation. She wanted to talk.
I called her back. "Dr. Thorne, thank you for taking my call," she began, her voice crisp and professional. "We've had some questions raised internally about the merger agreement, specifically Section 7, Clause 3. We were hoping you could provide some clarity." I kept my voice neutral. "Section 7 is your key personnel clause. You should have the original execution copy on file." "Yes, we do. But there appears to be some ambiguity regarding the licensing rights for the Q-Lattice 7 asset if certain personnel are no longer with Ethereus during the integration phase." "There's no ambiguity," I said. "The language is explicit. Without my continued role, the licensing rights for the Aegis key do not automatically remain with Ethereus." Silence on the other end of the line. "Then, would you be able to confirm whether those rights are currently in force?" "The licensing certificate was last validated while I was an employee. My status changed yesterday. If you require confirmation beyond that, you'll need to request the current certificate from Ethereus." She let out a soft, controlled breath. "Understood. Thank you for your time, Doctor." 10 minutes later, my inbox lit up like a Christmas tree. Someone at Kronos had committed a catastrophic email error, forwarding an internal panicked thread to the wrong distribution list, and my address was caught in the crossfire. The entire conversation was there. Isabel Rossi had sent an urgent, high-priority demand to Ethereus's legal team. Per Section 7, Clause 3, the termination of Dr. Eris Thorne raises substantial and immediate risk to the validity of the Q-Lattice 7 licensing. Provide immediate proof of Ethereus's current uncontested ownership of the Aegis key algorithm. Certification required by end of business today. The forwarded chain also showed that Robert, call me Bob Hemsworth, the most feared and financially savvy member of Ethereus's board, had been copied. Bob was a shark who swam in the deep waters of high finance. He read contracts for fun. He would be asking questions for which Ilara had no answers. I closed my laptop. I didn't forward the email. I didn't save it to a cloud drive. The less I moved, the more the ground would shift under their feet. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Ben Carter, one of my senior engineers. I'd mentored Ben for 5 years, teaching him not just the arcane mathematics of quantum encryption, but the philosophy behind it, the importance of building systems with integrity woven into their very code. "Dr. Thorne," he said, his voice tight, "I thought you should know something." "What's that, Ben?" "Ilara called me into her office this morning. She offered me the director of research position, a $250,000 salary, said I could start next week." I waited, saying nothing. I told her I don't work for titles or stock options. I work for leaders who earn respect. Then I walked out. Something in my chest, the tight knot of anger and betrayal, loosened just a fraction. "You didn't have to do that, Ben." "Yeah, I did," he said firmly. "You taught me that the code has to be clean. So does the conscience. I'm not forgetting that because she's waving a bigger check." "I appreciate it, Ben, truly." "One more thing," he added. "She asked me where you kept the primary Aegis key backups. I told her I had no idea.
She's got her IT guys trying to brute force their way into your old workstation. They won't find anything, will they? That's what I figured, I said. Just wanted you to know. She's panicking. After we hung up, I leaned back in my chair. Ilara was scrambling, throwing money and threats at the problem, but she was treating a symptom, not the disease. The clause was already in motion. The gears were turning. Lena came into the office with a sandwich. You need to eat. I'm fine. Eris, you look exhausted. When was the last time you slept through the night? I slept last night. It was a half-truth. I had lain in bed for 4 hours, my mind racing. I heard you get up at 3, she said, setting the plate down on my desk. This isn't just about the merger anymore, is it? I looked at her. What do you mean? You're carrying something, Eris. You have been for years. It's not just about protecting Alistair's legacy. It's about proving that those 25 years meant something, that all the missed dinners and canceled vacations were for a purpose. She wasn't wrong. A part of me, a part I wasn't proud of, needed Ilara to understand the magnitude of what she had thrown away. Not for revenge, but for validation. To have the world see that the quiet, dedicated work in the background was the very engine of the company, not the glossy marketing and aggressive deal-making. Maybe, I admitted. Lena squeezed my shoulder. Then finish it, but when this is over, we're going to Scotland, and you are going to let this all go. That evening, the news broke. Aetherius Innovations stock dropped 18% in after-hours trading. The financial networks ran scrolling alerts. Unconfirmed risk in Kronos merger. Key IP question raises investor jitters. Aetherius declines comment. I watched it unfold on my tablet. Inside Aetherius headquarters, it would be pure chaos. Emergency board meetings, lawyers running through hallways, Ilara trying to justify her decision to a board that was now seeing millions of dollars in valuation evaporate by the minute, while her primary backer, her uncle, Gerald Nance, who chaired the board, demanded answers.
My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need you back, but not under current leadership. It was from Robert Hemsworth. I recognized the blunt, transactional phrasing. He knew my value, but he also knew the current management was toxic. I didn't respond. Not yet. In negotiations, some offers are worth making them ask for twice. Another news alert flashed. Kronos Corporation issues statement. Declines to reaffirm merger timeline at this time. That was the shot across the bow. It told investors the deal was in serious jeopardy. It told Aetherius's board they had lost control. And it told Ilara that the clock I was watching was ticking louder than any denial or excuse she could muster. I checked the countdown. 47:33:18. Carol and I had a quiet dinner. Our daughter, Sophie, called from Stanford, her voice laced with worry. She'd seen the news about Aetherius online. Dad, are you okay? What's happening? Everything is fine, sweetheart, I told her, my voice calm. I landed on my feet. It wasn't a lie, not really. It was a promise of what was to come. After dinner, I sat on the porch again. The neighborhood was peaceful. Somewhere across the city, Ilara was likely still in a conference room, bathed in the cold light of a projector screen, trying to convince a room full of frightened people that she had everything under control. She didn't. And in less than 48 hours, the entire world would know it. The call came at 9:47 on Wednesday morning. Ilara's direct line flashed on my screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Dr. Thorne. I kept my voice flat. Where the hell have you been? Her voice was a whip crack, strained and barely controlled. They said they spoke to you. What did you tell them? Good morning to you, too. Don't, she snapped. They're acting like there's a fundamental problem with Section 7. What did you say to them? Have you read the contract, Ilara? The silence on the other end was long and telling. I've reviewed the key sections, she said finally, defensively. I'd recommend reading all of it. especially the parts your legal team didn't think to flag. Dr. Thorne, this isn't a game. The shout was sharp, frayed at the edges. They want proof of ownership for the Aegis key. We can't find the current licensing certificate. Which system are you checking? The legal vault? The contract archive? I almost smiled. That's interesting. The master licensing certificate is in a separate encrypted vault, one with highly restricted access. The vault I controlled. I glanced at my monitor. The countdown read 26:13:51. Aris, just tell me where it is. The use of my first name was a calculated, desperate attempt at familiarity. That would require me to still be an employee of the company, which I am not. I heard her rapid click of her heels on polished concrete. She was pacing. If we can't produce that certificate, the merger... She stopped herself, realizing she was revealing too much. If you can't produce it, I finished for her, my voice quiet and steady. Kronos will invoke the delay clause, 9 months minimum, maybe longer. And during that time, they'll conduct a deep dive due diligence that will make an IRS audit look like a friendly conversation. They'll decide if this deal is worth salvaging at a fraction of the price. Damn it, Aris! The shout cracked, raw and loud. This is my reputation on the line! Yes, I said. It is. Neither of us spoke for a 10 count. I could hear her ragged breathing. Then she tried again, her voice softening into a poor imitation of conciliation. Look, if I can work something out, if I talk to the board about reinstating you, I'm not coming back, Alara. But read your contract. All of it. Neither of us spoke for a 10 count. I could hear her ragged breathing. Then she tried again, her voice softening into a poor imitation of conciliation. Look, if I can work something out, if I talk to the board about reinstating you, I'm not coming back, Alara. But read your contract. All of it. I ended the call. Lena walked in a minute later. That was her? Yeah. How did it go? About as you'd expect. She handed me a glass of water. You look pale. Are you okay? The tightness in my chest was back, sharper this time, a band of pressure that made it hard to draw full breath. I waved it off. Just stress. I'm fine. A race you promised me. After this was done? I know. Scotland. I remember. She didn't look convinced, but she let it go.
An hour later, the market opened. Etherea's stock dropped another 10%. Total decline, 28% in 36 hours. The news coverage intensified. Financial analysts were downgrading the stock from hold to strong sell. One famously acerbic commentator used the phrase, catastrophic failure of executive oversight. Another called it a case study in how to destroy $200 million in market cap with one personnel decision. My phone lit up with a push notification. Someone had leaked audio from an emergency Ethereus board meeting. I clicked the link. The recording was muffled, recorded on a phone, but the voices were clear enough. Robert Hemsworth's voice, cold as ice. Alara walked me through this. You terminated Thorne 72 hours before his bonus payment. The same bonus that is contractually tied to the IP transfer clause for the Aegis key. Did you or did you not read that section of his contract? Alara flustered. Robert, I was advised the bonus was standard executive compensation. I was cutting costs. Advised by who? Hemsworth interrupted. Because legal flagged this clause 14 years ago when Alistair wrote it. It's in the archives. Gerald. This was directed at her uncle, Gerald Vance. Gerald's voice, old and weary. We'll fix this. We'll offer Thorne whatever he wants. A bonus, a consultancy, his old job back. Hemsworth. He won't take it. I already reached out. He's not interested in coming back under the current leadership. Gerald, then we'll sue. Breach of contract, theft and intellectual property. Hemsworth, with a sound of disgust. On what grounds, Gerald? The transfer clause is legal, binding, and separate from his standard employment terms. Alistair and Thorne structured it as a personal intellectual property agreement. It's airtight. Our own lawyers just confirmed it. We have no standing. The recording cut off. I sat back, letting the words sink in. The board was fracturing. Alara's protectors were turning. Her credibility was in ashes. Gerald was realizing too late that his niece had just incinerated his company's biggest deal. That afternoon, the other shoe dropped. Kronos Corporation released a formal statement. Due to unresolved contractual concerns regarding key intellectual property and personnel, Kronos Corporation is suspending its merger negotiations with Aetherius Innovations, pending a comprehensive review. Suspended, not terminated. That was worse. It meant they were keeping the door open just a crack while they explored other options. And I knew exactly what option they were exploring. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Julian Croft, the formidable CEO of Kronos Corporation. Dr. Thorne, he began, his voice a low, confident rumble. I wanted to inform you personally that we're suspending the Aetherius merger. I saw the statement. There's another reason I'm calling. My team and I have reviewed your background. 25 years at Aetherius. Primary architect on every major government and financial contract they've won. The success of the Aegis Key is demonstrably tied to you, not to the corporate entity. I waited. We drafted an alternative proposal yesterday, a direct partnership between Kronos and you personally, if you're interested. I looked at the countdown. 14:08:22. I'd need to review the terms. I'll send them within the hour. Dr. Thorne, I'll be direct. We need the Aegis Key. More importantly, we need the mind that created it. We need someone we can trust. That's you, not Aetherius. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my office for a long time. It was really happening. Not just the collapse, but the rebirth. A new path, one where I controlled the terms, my time, my work. The news broke fast. Kronos suspends Aetherius merger. Tech deal in jeopardy over personnel dispute. CEO's niece faces board scrutiny. Social media erupted. Someone unearthed a post from Alara's LinkedIn from 3 months prior. So proud to be leading the Aetherius team into its next chapter with Kronos. The future of cybersecurity starts here. #merger, #innovation, #leadership. The comments were a river of schadenfreude. This aged well. Maybe should have focused on reading contracts instead of writing hashtags. My phone buzzed. An email from Julian Croft. Subject, partnership proposal, Thorne Cryptographic Solutions. I opened it. The terms were more than generous. They were transformative. A 3-year consulting contract, $20 million total compensation, a 5% equity stake in all future Kronos deployments utilizing the Aegis Key, complete and total creative control over all technical decisions, part-time work, remote whenever possible. It was everything I had ever wanted but never dared to ask for. I forwarded it to my attorney, Mark, with a single note. Review this. I think we have a deal. His response was almost instantaneous. Aris, this is exceptional. Far beyond anything Aetherius ever offered. The autonomy is priceless. Let's move forward. That evening, Lena and I sat on the porch, holding hands. The sunset was a spectacular blaze of orange and purple. It's almost over, she said. Yeah. How do you feel? I thought about it. Tired? Relieved? Ready to be done. No regrets about leaving Aetherius? No. About the 25 years? Some days, yes. Some days, no. I built something that mattered. That has to count for something. She squeezed my hand. It counts for everything. The countdown on my monitor upstairs read 11:42:06. By tomorrow morning, the Aegis Key would be mine. Not Aetherius, not Alara's,
Mine. And then I could finally, truly let it all go. I didn't sleep much that night. At 3 a.m., Lena found me at my desk, watching the final hours drip away. She didn't say a word, just placed her hand on my shoulder and stood there, a silent, steady presence, until I finally shut down the computer and followed her back to bed. Thursday morning arrived, cold and brilliantly clear. I made coffee and sat on the porch watching the world wake up. My phone was powered off. I needed no distractions for the final act.
At 11:55 a.m., I went upstairs and opened my laptop. The countdown read 000438. Lena stood in the doorway. "You sure about this?" "Yeah," I said, my voice calm. "I'm sure." The numbers ticked down. 3 minutes, 2, 1. At exactly 12:00 noon, the screen flashed. A simple, unadorned notification appeared. Transfer complete. A PDF icon materialized on the desktop. I opened it. It was the master licensing certificate for the Aegis Key quantum lattice algorithm. The ownership field had been updated automatically. Owner, Dr. Eris Thorne. 25 years of work, of struggle, of triumph and sacrifice, now legally and incontestably mine. I downloaded the file, saved it in 3 separate, encrypted, geographically dispersed locations, and sent a one-line email to my attorney. "It's done." His reply was immediate. "Congratulations. It's locked down. No one can touch it now." Lena came over and looked at the screen. "That's it. That's it." She wrapped her arms around me from behind, resting her chin on my shoulder. "How does it feel?" "Honestly," I said, the tension finally draining from my body, leaving only a profound exhaustion, "I just feel tired." I turned my phone on an hour later. It erupted in a symphony of chimes and vibrations. 43 missed calls, 67 text messages. My voicemail was full. The news had already broken. Kronos Corporation announces exclusive partnership with Thorne Cryptographic Solutions. The press release was a model of corporate clarity with a devastating subtext. Kronos is pleased to confirm a strategic partnership with Dr. Eris Thorne for the exclusive development and deployment of the Aegis Key quantum encryption protocol. No mention of Aetherius. No mention of Alara. Just my name and the system I had built. One of the texts was from Ben Carter. "Dr. Thorne, I saw the news. Does this mean what I think it means?" I called him back. "It means I'm starting a consulting firm, and I'm bringing you on as technical director. If you're interested." "Absolutely. When do we start?" "In 30 days, I have to take my wife to Scotland first." "You've earned it, sir." Another text came through, from a number I didn't recognize, but the message made the sender's identity clear. "Eris, this is Gerald Vance. I owe you a profound apology. I was blind to the situation. If there's any path to making this right..." I stared at the message. Gerald wasn't evil, he was nepotistic and had placed his faith in the wrong person. But some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. The embers are too hot, the chasm too wide. I wrote back, "I appreciate that, Gerald, but it's time for all of us to move forward. Good luck." The financial networks ran the story all day. Aetherius' stock was in freefall, down 35% in total. Analysts were calling it one of the most spectacular merger collapses in recent tech history. One headline read, "How a $187K bonus clause torpedoed a $450 million deal." That evening, my phone rang one more time. It was Robert Hemsworth. "Eris, I won't take much of your time. I just wanted to say, we should have protected you better. Alistair would have been ashamed of how this played out. Alistair built the protection I needed 14 years ago. He saw this coming. He was always the smartest man in the room." Hemsworth was quiet for a moment. "For what it's worth, Alara is no longer with the company. The board demanded her resignation this morning." I felt no surge of triumph, only a hollow sense of closure. "What about Gerald?" "He's staying on for now, but his influence is, diminished. The board is not happy. This was entirely avoidable." "No," I agreed. It didn't. After we hung up, I found Lena in the kitchen. "Alara's out," I told her. "How do you feel about that?" "I don't know. It's not about her anymore. It's about what comes next." Lena smiled. "Scotland." "Scotland," I confirmed. 3 weeks, just us. We spent the weekend in a peaceful, purposeful quiet. I ignored most calls, answered a few essential emails, and began sketching out the structure of Thorn cryptographic solutions. Ben and I spoke twice, planning to bring on 2 other brilliant engineers from Ethereus, people I trusted who deserved to work in an environment of respect and innovation. On Monday, I signed a partnership agreement with Kronos. The contract was everything Julian Croft had promised: 3 years, part-time, complete control. After that, full retirement at 55. On Tuesday morning, Lena and I loaded our luggage into the car and began the drive to the airport. We were bound for the Scottish Highlands. We'd rented a stone cottage on the edge of a loch, a place with no cell service, no internet, nothing but the sound of wind and water and the cry of distant birds. The flight was long, the drive from Inverness longer. Somewhere along a single-track road winding through heather-covered hills, my phone finally lost its signal. The digital tether was cut. The news cycle, Ethereus, the whole frantic world, faded into irrelevance. When we arrived at the cottage, I stood on the rough-hewn wooden dock and looked out at the dark, peat-stained water. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold. Lena came up beside me, slipping her hand into mine. "You did it," she said softly. "We did it," I corrected, turning to her. "I couldn't have made it through without you." "So," she said, leaning her head against my shoulder. "What now?" "Now," I said, breathing in the clean, cold air, "I go fishing, I read books, I stop checking my phone, I remember how to exist without a crisis hanging over my head. And in 30 days, I go back, train Ben and the team, and we build something new, with people who have earned their seats at the table. Then, in 3 years, I'm done. For good."
Lena smiled, a real, deep, joyful smile I hadn't seen in years. I'm holding you to that. 2 weeks into our stay, my satellite phone, reserved for dire emergencies, rang. It was a Pentagon area code. I almost didn't answer, but a lifetime of habit and responsibility made me press the button. "Dr. Thorne, we have a situation. A critical infrastructure breach on the eastern seaboard grid. We need—" I cut the voice off, my own tone calm and firm. "I'll have my team contact you. Ben Carter will be your point of contact. He'll handle it." "But, sir, we specifically requested you." "Ben is good, better than good. Trust him." I hung up and walked back to the cottage where Lena was teaching our visiting niece how to bake scones. The world's problems would have to find another savior for a little while longer. I went out to the porch where my nephew was struggling with a fishing rod, his small brow furrowed in concentration. I showed him how to tie a proper Palomar knot, the way Alistair had shown me a lifetime ago, in a different world. "Uncle Aris, did you really used to stop computer hackers?" "Sort of," I said, ruffling his hair. "I built systems that kept important things safe, like power and money and messages." "Are you going to do it again?" I looked out at the loch, at the serene, ancient landscape, and then back at his earnest face. "I'm going to teach other people how to do it, and then I'm going to retire and take you fishing more often." He grinned. "Deal." That night, Lena and I sat on the dock, wrapped in thick blankets, watching a canopy of stars unlike anything you can see in the city. 25 years of carrying their weight. Any regrets? About leaving? No. About how it ended? Maybe, I admitted. I wish Ilara just read the contract. It would have saved everyone a great deal of pain. You think she learned anything from all this? I hope so, but that's not my problem anymore. Lena leaned her head on my shoulder. Alistair would be proud of you. I looked up at the vast, star-dusted sky. Yeah, I said softly. I think he would. 72 hours. That was all it took to dismantle a kingdom and build a new one. Ilara Vance thought she was cutting a costly relic. What she did was hand me my future and prove in the most dramatic way possible that competence, loyalty, and quiet, dedicated work will always, in the end, outmaneuver blind ambition. I'm 52 years old. I have 3 years of meaningful work left. Then I'm done. And somewhere in a glass and steel tower, there is a boardroom full of people learning the hardest of lessons, that some people can't be replaced, not because they are irreplaceable, but because they built the foundation and they were wise enough to keep the deed.